Hey, what's up, Patton? How you doing?
Good. How did the game turn out yesterday?
My daughter's team actually won, and they haven't done a ton of that in the 2 seasons she's been playing with this group. So it turned out really well. Thank you for asking.
Oh, that must have felt so good. I remember how old is she?
She is 11.
When my daughter was like 4 or 5, she played like pee-wee soccer, and it was just complete chaos, but it was so fun to watch.
Yeah, that age is really fun because it's a combination of kids who are like much bigger than everybody else who completely
Yep.
dominate, and then the kids who are more interested in chasing butterflies and grasshoppers than they are with anything else happening in front of them.
Alice was a butterfly chaser.
That's okay though. That means she's a
Yeah.
dreamer, and you want dreamers at the age of 4 or 5. You don't want the kids who are too serious about sports at that age.
Exactly. Now, is this your home setup?
Yeah, this is the home setup here.
Damn, that looks nice. Is that like a room or is that wow, it looks really nice.
No, it's a background. I appreciate
Oh,
that. It's paid a little bit for it to look more professional than the bookcase that I had behind me originally. So I dig it. I've got a couple of chairs behind me to where I can have people in studio. But yeah, I get to do everything out of my house when I'm not finding spots in wooded areas near soccer fields to try and make these things happen. But I,
I
I
love
really
it.
appreciate your generosity in finding some time this week. I know that you had to travel to Toronto because you are shooting the current Star Trek series on Paramount Plus. You're revising your role that happened earlier this year. Is that correct?
Yes, they want Doug back for another episode, and can't say what the episode is about, but it's pretty crazy. They sent me the script. We're going to do the first table read tomorrow, and then we'll start. I'm going to shoot for a day on Wednesday, and then Thursday morning I'll fly back down to Austin, and I'm going to be in Austin for Fantastic Fest and then a show on Friday at the Paramount. And then when I'm done with that, on Monday, I go back to Toronto and finish shooting Star Trek. So try to put that schedule in your head right now. It's insane.
That is a whirlwind. At least you're coming for some really good reasons. The Paramount, as you're well aware, is an awesome venue and Fantastic Fest. I know there's a billion different festivals now. Fantastic Fest is truly one of the coolest festivals in this country. Have you got a
Yes.
chance to participate in that one yet?
I've never been to Well, I went to a million years ago. This was in the 90s when I think Fantastic Fest was really young. I went to one up in Montreal. And what I love about it is it's truly like these are first and second time filmmakers working inside the horror and fantasy and science fiction genre. So you get to see really big, crazy swings. I'm going to be watching 9 movies in 3 days while I'm there. And I got to be on the short film jury at Sundance a few years ago, but one of my abiding dreams is to be invited to be on a jury at a film festival and just watch movies for like 3 or 4 days. That to me is heaven. So getting to do it in Austin, A, at the Alamo, which is one of the best places to see movies, and then B, the slate of movies that they've sent me. These are all filmmakers I've never heard of. So that could not be more exciting to like experience that. And then in the middle of it, I get to do a show at the Paramount. Like it's the whole thing. It's like a weird fantasy camp for me. Oh, I get to do all my favorite things. I get to eat the food in Austin. I get to do a show at the Paramount. I get to watch movies at the Alamo. Couldn't be happier.
Yeah, you're very familiar with this town, as a lot of people are probably well aware at this point. Are there specific places that you look to grab a bite, or is it more about generally finding good barbecue, Tex-Mex, things like that?
Well, I'm definitely going to go to Tokoshan, and I'm going to go to oh God, I know that some people think it's a little too touristy, but there ain't nothing wrong with the Ironworks. Um, Ironworks barbecue.
That's how I know that you've been coming to this town for years because Ironworks is an old school, really good barbecue
Yep.
spot that,
Yeah.
to be quite blunt, doesn't get enough love in modern times. So I love to hear that that's where you're going to be headed.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a while it got that, um, oh, this is just where everyone goes. But it's like, yeah, there's a reason everyone goes there because it's really, really good. And now I'm glad that it's settled back down to like the people that know it and you go there. I mean, it is, it's just, it's so perfect. I can't really go into the weeds on it too much. Everything that they make is perfect.
Yeah,
I couldn't be happier.
any good Texas barbecue place starts with making good brisket, but what separates the really good places from the pretty good places are the sausage, the turkey, the sides, all the
Mhm.
other accoutrements.
It's just, and then I don't right now. I don't have a current favorite place for migas. Do you have like a favorite like breakfast spot like right now that you're like, oh, you got to go try this place?
Man, Veracruz is a really good spot.
Uh-huh.
I assume you're staying downtown. They have a little window that is over near the Congress Bridge, but I would encourage you to go to. They've got a spot over on the east side where they do a really good job. So hop in an Uber and go grab the
Okay.
migas from Veracruz. But there's a lot of good places that have solid migas though. So if you're looking for something in walking distance, I'm
Yeah.
not as familiar with downtown morning dining. I could give you some
Hmm.
great recs for lunch or dinner. But yeah, there will be plenty of spots at your disposal, no doubt about that.
I literally just opened up my schedule of screenings to look at what are the best mornings because my screenings start early. I think Sunday morning I can definitely do a nice lengthy breakfast somewhere before to fuel up for the three movies that I'm watching that day.
Now, even for a cinephile like you, I've got to imagine that watching three movies back to back to back can get a little bit tiring, especially if all three aren't bangers.
Well, that's the but I kind of like I'm at a stage now as a movie watcher, and this isn't a brag, it's just how it is for me, where even if a movie isn't working, that can still be a fascinating experience for me to watch. Oh, I can sense what it was going for, and I can sense why it didn't quite make it, or sometimes a movie will succeed because it overshoots and crashes so spectacularly that that becomes the appeal of it. So I'm actually very lucky. I've been watching movies for so long that one thing that I'm kind of immune to is a bad movie experience because I can enjoy it on a lot of different levels. I mean, a truly bad movie to me is one where and there are certain movies, and weirdly enough, these are usually the big budget studio ones where you're like, there was no there was no passionate aim to this. This was all a calculation. And then not only are we doing a money calculation, we're not even going to do anything risky to get said money. And I can name a couple of massive studio films that have come out in the last couple of years where you're like, absolutely nobody was fired up to do this. They were fired up by the paycheck at the end of it, but they were like, okay, carve out these 3 weeks, show up, be a professional, go home. And you know that when you see it. Like you know that when you see it.
Is that half the superhero movies now? I mean, I don't watch a ton of them, but I assume that at least some of them fall into that category.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say half, but there are some where it's clear that okay, this was part of a larger thing that they mapped out before they even signed actors on. And some of these actors, and you can see it in their faces. You can see the look of like, oh, I said yes to this. And not only do I have to get through this, I've got two more after this. And, like you can sense that kind of, I wouldn't even call it fear, but I would call it like this weird exhaustion of like, well, this is where I have to show the money people that I can show up and do the job of not only doing the movie, but then promoting it after and doing all the cons and doing the circuit and getting the work. Like, this is what's going to get me work down the line in the stuff that I want to do. It's almost like in Glengarry Glen Ross, it's like if you can sell the crappy leads, we'll give you the Glengarry leads. And so there's a lot of that.
That's a great analogy for it. Well, considering
Yeah.
all the credits that you have, I assume that there's once or twice that you've shown up on the set on the very first day and realized that you're trapped in one of those projects too. Not to name any names, of course.
So far, listen, there's no wood near me an outcome, but so far, everything that I've done, even when it didn't quite work, I was there with people that were almost at a lunatic pathological level of like, this is something I believe in and I want to do this. And like, you could feel that passion happening, and it made it kind of fun. And so even the days when it was difficult, we're like, well, we are doing something weird here. I haven't yet signed on for the and not that I would do it if they offered to me, I'd do it in a second. But the giant IP where they're just like, yeah, we're doing Monopoly the movie, and you're gonna be the top hat, and you're okay, like that kind of thing. That hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure I will end up in front of a green screen somewhere with a guy off the camera going, so its eyes are up here, so look up there, and that's who you're talking to. And then I go, so where are the other actors? Like, oh, we're going to film them all separately and just slap them in there. Don't worry about it. Like, that's coming for you.
I don't know if you've seen the studio yet, but their Kool-Aid Man movie spoof is
Oh,
so freaking brilliant with how it mocks every aspect of making a movie like that.
it's so interesting how the studio just cleaned up at the Emmys because and the studio is a brilliant show, but there's still a sense of liveliness and hope to it. There was an equally smart and snarky show that came out last year called The Franchise. Or maybe it came out earlier this year, also about basically taking like looking at how they make like Marvel movies. But it was very funny, but it was also so bleak and hopeless.
Hmm.
And it didn't get any awards love because it was like if you're going to show people how messed up this business in, you better make this fun to watch. Like I feel like industry insiders watched the franchise and went, this is actually too close to home. Like at least the studio added a level of like Doctor Strangelove insanity so that I can keep myself a little bit distant from it.
Yeah.
And this is not to take anything away from the studio, but the studio and the franchise are very interesting side by side case studies.
Yeah, it sounds like the franchise was maybe giving out a little bit too much PTSD from those in the industry who tended to
Yes.
watch it.
Yes, absolutely. That's what it was doing.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you feel like you don't have a whole lot of movies that you've walked on the set the very first day and thought that you were in the middle of a disaster. I don't really hear you talk about this movie a lot, but one of my favorite movies of yours, and I actually did see it in the theater. I had moved to Oregon at the
Oh.
time. I didn't know a ton of people, and this movie just looked freaking outstanding to me, and it exceeded my lofty expectations. Was big fan. How much fun
Wow.
was it to get to make that movie, Patton?
Um, it was exciting. It wasn't necessarily fun. It was exciting for me because this is, I'm such a movie fan and I always crow about, oh, the early 70s when Coppola would just start shooting a movie and they didn't even know how they're going to finish it. They didn't have the money for it, but damn it, let's go do it. And that's what this guy did. The guy that wrote and directed, big fan, wrote the movie The Wrestler. And the money that he got from doing that, he then put into making this movie, which was the script that he had written like 10 years ago and he had always taken around and tried to get made. And he's like, damn it, I'm going to make it myself. Like nobody would make it. And so that spirit made me really sign on. But it was rough. There was like no dressing rooms. All the
Oh.
locations were things we could grab. The hours were insane, but the script was so good. It's like, oh, I'm making a movie. Like I'm actually making a movie right now. And I mean, were you in sports radio at that time?
I had actually exited sports radio. I was more in general talk radio, but I've got a weird relationship with sports. Like I definitely like sports, but I like the stories that come with sports a whole lot
Me
more
too.
than the action from day to day. So
Yeah.
to hear, it's interesting to hear you say that you guys were kind of operating on a shoestring budget in a sense because I think that fits with what your character and
Yes.
Kevin Corrigan's character were going through, and there was a grittiness within your actual existence in terms of what your characters were in that story. So maybe that helped make for a better movie when it's all said and
Well,
done.
and we're also playing characters that have so aggressively rejected every aspect of life and
Yeah.
pared their lives down to this one thing that they care about at the expense of literally everything else. And um, the only reason I'm asking if you have been in sports radio, because every time I've ever talked to someone who did sports call-in shows for like, we had a Paul, we had a guy like that, that were like, oh, It's 4:18 p.m. on a Thursday. Guess who's going to be calling? And you could tell that when they were talking, they were reading from something that they had written. Like you got that sense that this was, you were a function of their world rather than the other way around.
Yeah, there are definitely characters from the past and present that qualify as such. And on the one hand, it's like, okay, it's this person again. But on the other hand, you also realize how important you are to them. So those little interactions, like, gosh, you're kind of doing it with me right now. I've got a ton of admiration for your work. It's like you're taking the time to talk to somebody and to ask them questions about themselves, or you asking me how my daughter's soccer game went at the very beginning of this conversation. That goes a long ways at the end of the way, at the end of the day. And not only keeping a fan in a sense, but also helping that person who may be dealing with struggles in a part of their life that they're trying to escape from by sharing their hot sports take with you.
That is such a good. I mean, we know you get to an age where you realize, oh, everyone is going through a struggle, even if they're not showing it to you. And a lot of times, the way that you know that they're going through the struggle is through these oblique ways where they are very much into some kind of. It's a way to get out of themselves for a little bit, a way to get out of that weird cage where all the thorns are pointing inward. Can't you just get out of it for a second? And so sports, movies, Marvel movies, comic books, all that stuff. To me, they're all the same. It's all the exact same thing. It's all the how can I take up more space in the world? How can I make my world bigger when I don't actually physically know how to do that? There's something sad, but also beautiful about that, I think.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Do you have a favorite sport or sports team?
I'm like you. I don't really follow sports, but I love all the. I've seen every 30 for 30 documentary. I think I've seen any time there's a sports documentary about someone that the Michael Jordan one on Netflix, the Fire and Ice one about McEnroe and Bjorn, all that like those where they get into the personalities and the stories. I can't get enough of that. That is so much more interesting to me than like you said the actual watching the game and the play by play stuff.
Yeah. So as far as
Yeah.
movies are concerned, if you don't have a favorite sport or sports team necessarily, you certainly have a favorite movie or some favorite movies. Before I ask you that,
Oh
I know it's a
God.
bit of a cliche question. I'm going to tell you my favorite movie and get your thoughts on this one.
Let me hear it.
Royal Tenenbaums, a Wes Anderson classic. Thoughts?
Um, the Royal Tenenbaums. It's weird that you bring that up because I have a comic book called Minor Threats, and a writer friend of ours pitched a little spin-off of it called The Brood, and basically it's about a supervillain trying to figure out how to give which of my kids do I give my supervillain empire to? So it's very much like a succession kind of thing. But the way he pitched it to us was his pitch was the Lex Luthor in the Superman movies grew older and became Royal Tenenbaum in the Royal Tenenbaum movies. That Gene Hackman is playing the same character. He's this weird, failed supervillain who's trying to become human and doesn't know how to do it. And if you look at the movie that way, the movie is brilliant as it is, but if you add that other insane dimension to it, it becomes even more fascinating. How he just showed sometimes this shallow cad can have sparks flying off him into the universe that are actually deep, clever, genius people that just and one of the reasons that they are geniuses is because they didn't have that dad growing up and they compensated by becoming geniuses. So they're like, do I curse my father or do I thank him? I don't know what to do right now. So yeah, that is a that is a pretty fantastic film.
I love when you extend like popular cliched ideas and turn it into something unique. That comic book sounds fascinating. What was the name again?
It's called The Brood,
Okay.
and it is you would love it. If you like Royal Tenenbaums, you would love The Brood. It just came out in a trade paperback, and you don't need to read anything else from the Minor Threats universe. There's been a bunch of spin-offs now.
Hmm.
This is this beautiful standalone book where you're watching a supervillain who is not a good guy, and after a while, you're kind of rooting for him. It's very weird.
Interesting.
Just like in Royal Tenenbaums, I mean, he's a monster. When he shoots young Ben Stiller with a BB gun and says, no teams, but then later on he's taking his kids out on go-karts and you're just like, oh my God, it's so, how am I rooting for this guy? But you are.
I know what's coming at the very end of the movie. Spoiler alert! But I cry every time at the end with what
Oh,
ultimately happens with Royal and the
it's
Tenenbaums.
it's weird that you mentioned the Royal Tenenbaums. This isn't on the same level, but if we're talking about like sports movies, what I now think, just from rewatching it a bunch of times, I think one of the best movies from the 1970s, and everyone's like, oh, The Godfather and Jaws and Chinatown, but one that I think is just as good and just as deep as those movies, and maybe gets overlooked because it was such a popular hit and it's so entertaining. And I think a lot of people go, well, a movie that's that entertaining can't be deep or important, but I actually think it is the movie The Bad News Bears.
Mm,
Have you ever gone back and rewatched The Bad News Bears?
that movie is insane.
It's so good and so amazing about like different fathers and like the Vic Morrow versus Walter Matthau and the all the different levels of kids and the pecking orders there. And I mean, it is just fascinating to me. I can't get enough of that movie. The levels that are in
The
that movie.
motorcycle riding, beer swilling, cigarette smoking. What was that kid? 12?
Well, it's also an amazing portrait of this is what how kids were raised in the 70s, which
Yeah.
was just benign neglect. Like what is she, 12? And he sends her in as bait for Kelly Leak, and then he's gonna go take her to Aerosmith. And they're like, what? It's just nuts. And driving the kids around in a convertible, no seatbelts, drinking. And that was, and like, that's like, yeah, that's what you did. Like, there was just nothing, no supervision. That's how we were raised.
That was literally the era where everybody just accepted that you had the pedophile uncle in the family. Like, oh, there's Uncle Johnny. He's always really weird around the kids.
It's so creepy. It's just so, but it's so honest. Like this is what life was, and um, there were very, very toxic parenting going on, especially with these coaches. And Vic Morrow is so brilliant in that movie as this frustrated guy who he's like he's this totally focused type A guy, but clearly also wanted to be a professional athlete and never was. And Walter Matthau is just this I could care less. I'm not, but he actually did almost go to the show. Like, and I always feel like that was their version of the people who actually went to Vietnam never really want to go to war, and the people that never actually got to go to war are always ones going, "We got to go to war." And the people that have been to war are like, "Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. It's just maybe you should calm down. Like this is really bad." So there's, I mean, again, that's just one of 9 million stories going on in that movie. You
Yeah.
know, that's when you could do a movie with 12 little side stories, and you don't even need to resolve them all. They're all there. They're all happening, and you know and they lose at the end. They lose, and you still are happy. Like it's oh my God, that movie's so good.
That's a great one. Good call on that. All right, last thing now, Pat, and you've been hearing the wit, the humor all throughout this conversation today. Going to be at the Paramount this Friday. Effervescent is the current hour. AustinTheater.org for those tickets. Pat and I love stand-up comedy. You love stand-up comedy. What do you love about stand-up comedy?
I love the fact that stand-up comedy is we the people that do stand-up comedy have signed up to pursue an art form that is ephemeral. We're the closest things to like winemakers and cooks. The thing that we make is not going to age well. There's no such thing as like stand-up comedy from 50 years ago that still really lands the way stuff does now. And we know that, and that's what we've signed up for. We're making sand sculptures on a beach, and we're more about I want to experience a moment on stage, an event, rather than oh, here's this thing and it's checked off forever and it's in the, you know what I mean? And I really resent when people try to turn stand up into sports or a competition where who's the best and who's the worst. Like we should, the thing that's so great about stand up and especially a lot of the arts is they are ephemeral. There is no winner or loser. It's just this ongoing journey and process. And I always go out of my way not to rank people or, because now there's a lot of mediocrities doing stand up that are just like, this person's filling arenas, thus they're the best stand up. It's like, that's not how this works. And that's never how this has worked. Some people are filling arenas and are amazing. Other people, you know what I mean? Like, if you can't recognize the brilliance of someone who's doing a Tuesday night at the Improv in San Jose and how amazing that set is, compared to someone who's at Madison Square Garden. And if you can't see the actual value, then you're not living and experiencing the full game. You're missing so much.
I was just about to say, if sales were the accurate gauge, it would have been Bill Hicks selling out Madison Square Garden back in the 80s and 90s, and not Andrew Dice Clay.
It's yeah. There's so many. It's weird. Later this year, I'm going up to Olympia, Washington to screen some movies. There's a Nicolas Cage movie called Pig that
Great.
I've
It's such
become
a
kind
great
of, yeah.
movie. It's such a
But
great movie.
but that's also kind of about where I think stand up and the arts are now.
Mm.
Of you have to be able to recognize what has value. It's that line he says, "We're given very little to care about in this world," and he is living that again almost to a fault. But there's something so beautiful about it.
He is an absolute metaphorical wizard. That's always been the case. It's why I love his stand up and all the other great work on the IMDb sheet. He is Patton Oswalt. Check him out. Paramount Theater this Friday, austintheater.org. Patton, it's a real honor and pleasure. Thank you so much for the time today, man.
Thanks, dude.